But again, drainage there is still very important too, and just keeping the water going in the direction that it's supposed to come in. Lots of projects that we work on involve people who have fixed their drainage and given it to their neighbor. And sort of a rule of thumb about that, and it varies a little bit, but a rule of thumb about that is that wherever the water was flowing in the beginning, that's where the water should continue to flow. So if you want to build an 8-foot wall on the east side of your property and that's where all your drainage goes, you need to make it so that it can drain through the wall at the proper levels. So everybody has to deal with drainage as a neighborhood, not just your own home, and just be aware of that. And thinking about how to evaluate your current landscape, I think there are a lot of really times for soul searching. Time to go out there and really say, what do I like about my landscape? What do I like about my home? What do I like about living here? And in doing that, I think the first part of the puzzle is evaluating your hardscape. And hardscape involves all the sidewalks, patios, retainer walls, fences, gates, anything that's not a plant. Irrigation. All those things are things that you need to evaluate and say, is this in good condition? Is this something I want to keep? Or if you don't want it, can you reuse it somehow? We have a project we're working on right now. They have a humongous brick patio that's not laid well, and we're salvaging all the bricks and we're going to use them in a different way. So just because there's something there that you don't like doesn't mean that you can't reuse it. The evaluation of trees is one of the most important things that you'll do for your property. And recently, in fact, after I kind of started working on this presentation, I started going around and looking at how people were planting trees and thinking about how to give people a guideline to think about their trees. And I always say, if you're out at the nursery and you're going to buy a 20-gallon live oak tree that is a 6-foot wide head on it and it's 10 feet tall, and you decide, you know, there are two for $50. Do you need two? And what you have to do is you have to go back and actually look at a live oak tree that's been growing for 10 or 15, 20 years, 50 years, and realize that when you put that tree in, that tree is going to take, it's going to become its spot. That is going to become the place where that tree needs to live. So as I drive down freeways and as I go through neighborhoods, I see people who have gone out and they bought 3 flowering pears and they put them 8 feet on center underneath a red oak. And I think, you know, I think it's just somebody who loved pears. They didn't have a place for them in their garden, but they bought them anyway. Evaluating your trees also, like a lot of places that we go to, their trees have not been cared for well. And so we look at the trees and we think, which trees need to be saved and which trees need to go. Frequently, hackberry trees have grown up in a lot of landscapes and they've overtaken live oak trees, they've overtaken areas. A couple of years ago, we were working on a place to build a new pool, and there was a mulberry tree in the backyard, fruitless mulberry, which were planted a lot during the 60s, 50s, 60s, and some in the 70s. The trunk on it was 4 feet wide. It had completely grown over the top of some beautiful native live oak trees and had disfigured them. And the pool contractor tried to talk the homeowner out of taking it out because their home faced the west and the pool was being installed on the west side of their home. And they said, you know, this would be a terrible change for you all. Y'all have been used to coming out and it's all shady and wonderful out here. Well, also, fruitless mulberries have tremendous root systems, humongous root systems, and we're putting in a new pool with some paving. And so, you know, we determined that the fruitless mulberry needed to go, and that some severe pruning to get this beautiful live oak tree back in shape again was going to be needed, and it wasn't going to be a 1-year project. It was going to be a 5 or 10-year project to get this oak tree, you know, back to the point where it was really usable again, and really a part of the landscape and not just sort of a bent over tree. So we removed the mulberry, and I was just down there a couple of weeks ago, and it's amazing. We had the tree pruned and then did a lot of feeding, and the tree already has started to come back where the mulberry was. And where the mulberry was, we established a new red oak that's branched really, really high. Small red oak, it's not a big red oak, but it's going to provide great service for them. It'll be compatible with the live oak, and they can grow up together. Using subtrees, the most unbelievable thing when they invented hybrid crepe myrtles, which was a great day for all of us in the landscape business because we always waited years and years for our crepe myrtles to grow. People plant hybrid crepe myrtles everywhere. They get 50 feet tall and 30 feet wide, and they're hard to control. I mean, they require annual pruning. So they're not a bad tree. They just need to be used in the right place. And you know, one of the there are several different varieties of them, but you see them blooming. They're starting right now. These tremendous white ones that have the red trunks, beautiful crepe myrtles, but they don't belong under a live oak tree, and they don't belong next to a live oak tree. They need to have their own space. You can go online. There are tremendous amounts of information now online that you can go and get about trees and what they do, and so you can go out into your own landscape and figure out which trees you have, which trees you want to keep, and what things you want to add. And it makes it more realistic. Instead of getting 3 pairs and planting them 8 feet apart that are going to have to get chopped down in a couple of years, I think it's more prudent for you to figure out what you have, what you can keep, and then find a good person to help you with your pruning. It's another tough problem.
Do you have a favorite tree website?
I don't, but I can get you one.
Sure.
We use a bunch of different ones for different reasons, plant identification websites. But if you go on, like even if you wanted a Texas red oak and you just put in Texas red oak, they'll come up with a whole list of places that you can go to. Some are for buying red oaks, but some are for just getting the information about it. After you've evaluated your trees and found a person to help you prune them, a quick guideline for that, I would say, is anybody who's going to prune your trees should not be taking off any branches as bigger around than my wrist unless there's a reason for it. So people come in, I just went to a place in Bernie where they took off limbs this big. You have to think about the tree's roots have to be in the same proportion to the top of the tree. It grew that way. So if you're digging a pool and you're going to go into the roots of that tree, then you should be taking off some of the top of the tree. If you're going to cut off all this stuff off the top of the tree, you're still going to have all the roots, and the tree's going to be trying to feed these roots with half the foliage that it had before. So when you are looking for a person to prune your trees, there are 2 things. One, that I don't think anything any bigger than your wrist should be taken off the tree unless there's a specific reason for it, like you're going to build a house there or it's growing into your roof. And then the second part of it is get a list of where they've worked and go by and look at their work. And actually look at projects that they've already pruned and see if you find that attractive. I think that's important. The other thing is try to find people who are insured, because frequently your homeowner's policy has to cover people who are not insured if they get injured on your property. The next part of the landscape is to create your planting palette, and this revolves around whether you have sun or shade, and it revolves around the type of soil that you have, and it revolves around what you like. And there are lots of plants that work in both heavy soils and in soils that are well drained or quickly drained. They work in both of those, but what's important is that you come up with sort of a palette of the kinds of plants that you like. It makes it easier for you to focus, and I know the wonderful presentation just before this was about agaves and